Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to the National Federation of the Blind for helping bring all this together.
Yeah, so we're, well, some might know us, we're from Storm Interface. We've been at the NFB a few weeks ago at the convention. We make controls that are used on kiosks, ticket machines, payment terminals, and other self-service systems. So some of those controls are tactile buttons with paired with audio guidance to help blind people with low vision navigate the screen.
But as we all know, just putting some accessible hardware on a kiosk doesn't guarantee an accessible experience. For lots of different reasons, you know, the controls might be difficult to find, or the screen reader might not automatically start when you connect your headphones, or there might be timeouts halfway through. The credit card payment machine might be inaccessible. So although all the bits of the puzzle might be there, they might not all be working. And really, so, you know, quite simply, the systems don't work. They're not accessible.
Yeah, so we're going to spend a couple of minutes on just saying who we are, what we do, but most of today is about why we are in business in the first place, is removing those barriers for that we encounter in self-service for people with disabilities. So most of it is going to be hearing about users, how we can hear more from our users, see what's worked and what hasn't. So we can help the people that design solutions, including ourselves, to have a future with less barriers and more accessibility and self-service.
Yeah. So I'm Nicky. My name's Nicky Shaw. I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm Storm's senior business manager over here in the States. And for descriptive purposes, I'm a middle-aged, unfortunately, middle-aged white woman with brown hair.
Yeah, and I'm Matt. I'm the sales and marketing director at Storm Interface. Middle-aged man with hair that moved into a beard over the years. So, yeah, I think that's my description. We also have Luca on the call. Luca is our sales marketing specialist.
Hello, everybody.
So he's
been on the scene. Yeah.
The entire infrastructure that you're experiencing is all run by Luca. So thank you.
Yeah, he's our stage manager. So you've already heard the short version of what Storm does, you know, what we sort of are about in terms of the business sense. So we don't really want this to be a product presentation. And obviously, if you want that, please feel free to let us know after the call, because we're happy to hop on a call and do you a product presentation. But this really is more about us hearing from the users of self-service, be that inaccessible self-service or accessible self-service. So yeah, over to you, Matt, just for the next session.
Yeah, so today is all about your experiences. We want to hear what has worked, where we've run into barriers, what kiosk designers and operators still don't understand. Often we still talk about legislation, we talk about product features, where what we need to talk about is how do we get a user to actually use a self-service unit, might that be a payment machine or a check-in service. So these are things that we really want to talk about with our customers and go beyond the legislation and compliance purely, but talk about user experience, how can we improve it, and what can we do better to make that happen. So,
I mean, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because there's often, like, a kiosk might have audio, but there's no obvious way to start it. I often see a little audio jack on a kiosk and it's hidden away somewhere with no tactile idents or braille indicators of the fact that it's there. And I often stand in front of it and think, how would anybody know to be sort of, if you're navigating the world by touch, you would never have, you know, been reaching up there to find an audio jack. So sorry, Matt, carry on. That was, I just...
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly it. So these experiences are usually reported one by one. Some will get to the company, some won't. So we really want to make sure we collect all of them and we get them to drive change within our own products, to drive change within accessibility and the barriers that people encounter on a daily basis. So we want to collect them and have a collect voice within the self-service industry and the companies that deploy self-service.
Yeah, because really what we're thinking is that's the bit where there's a disconnect, because it seems like the deployers, like Matt said, they're often concerned about checking boxes to make sure that they meet standards, but that doesn't always guarantee an accessible experience. So, you know, yes, whilst people might be complaining at the store level or the, you know, doctor's office level, those voices are never, as far as we know, have never been collected anywhere. So what we want to try and create is a large body of like real world evidence that we can present to our customers and the deployers of these systems. And it may be that they've tried to install accessibility and there's just a component that's going wrong and we can help them remediate that. But really what we also want to do is put a human face to all of this as well, because we want to explain what this has cost people in terms of their time, their independence, their emotions. They may have found it a very embarrassing experience. I've heard that lots. We heard it at the NFB a few weeks ago, didn't we, Matt? From the attendees there when we were showing them our accessible, you know, some kiosks, accessible kiosks from our customers. And we were explaining to them, you know, how they would use our products if they find them on a kiosk. And the stories we heard there were all, they can't help but stir emotions. You know, it was, I walked out of the business. I didn't end up ordering my burger from that business. I left, you know, because I couldn't find an accessible kiosk. The members of staff were too busy to help me. It's those kind of emotional stories, and I say in terms of your dignity, frustration levels, thinking, you know what, this business isn't worth it, I'll go elsewhere. The burger is just as good next door. So it's all of those kind of stories that we want to collect in this sort of, with this sort of campaign that we're trying to do, this, you know, share your self-service experience campaign. Those are the sort of stories that we want, you know, to collect together to use in various different ways, which we'll come on to later in the slides. Sorry, Matt, carry on.
Absolutely. So you spoke about cost, and cost, when we talk to organizations, often cost refers to, okay, what does the product cost to integrate? What is the cost in terms of time to put a process in place? But cost for the end user is, of course, very different. It's cost in not being able to do something independently, which is a much higher cost than a product cost for people. So we want to make sure we collect all those, and then we bring them to organizations, and then also show them not just the cost of the product, but what the cost is in reality. Because as we speak, there are people going to self-service that simply can't use it. They're standing in front of a kiosk and they can't use the kiosk, not because the cost of the product isn't high, but purely because it's not integrated, or there's other barriers that maybe the organizations themselves don't see because they've never been presented to them. So we want to make sure we collect those and discuss it with organizations that we speak to.
And we also want, when we're talking about all the negatives here, we also want to hear about the good experiences, because it became apparent when we were at the NFB convention a couple of weeks ago. We mentioned a couple of businesses where our products were installed because people were asking, where can I find these, you know, when I'm out and about? So we sort of told them, you know, McDonald's and Taco Bell. We mentioned a couple of the companies that we've worked with who have actually, you know, taken the time to try and do it right. And McDonald's actually has quite a big accessibility team. So, you know, we were telling, and those people didn't know that was happening in the world, you know, because how would they? So it's not something that's really been marketed very well by any of the brands, as far as I know, that we work with. So we also want to hear about where people have had, you know, good experiences, where something's worked really, really well. And why has it worked well? Perhaps you've been in before when the business, you know, had a glitch in their software, they fixed it and now it's fantastic. This campaign is really all about sharing all of those experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as we like to say. So we want to know where they're getting it right, because what might mean it's right to somebody who's using that kiosk who can't see, perhaps, it's perhaps something, a very small detail that could be replicated over and over, and we just don't know about it. So it's every little bit of feedback. Nothing's too small, you know. So we're going to come on to later how you're going to be sharing that with us. But all I would like to say to everybody is no detail is too small, because all of those details come together to form a really fantastic picture that hopefully we can all benefit from.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just that the barriers we come across. There's also the really positive things we've seen in accessibility that are really changing the way organizations look at their self-service. So accessibility is now a big part of talks when we talk about a new self-service unit. So there's a lot of positivity as well. So although we sometimes talks about the barriers that people face, there's also been a lot of positive progress, and we want to make sure that that progress is also visible, so others can learn from what has worked, what can they do better, and essentially how can we offer accessible experiences to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, and to experience, sorry, can we just go back to that previous slide, Luca?
Sure.
Sorry. So really what the sort of share your self-service experience is all about is, you know, thinking back to the last time that you used a kiosk, good or bad, we're talking about here. So, you know, where were you? What did the kiosk do? What were you trying to do? I mean, and as we know, self-service is everywhere nowadays. Even the dry cleaners that I use in Phoenix is self-service. I don't speak to a person anymore. I think that they developed it after COVID, bless them, because they had to close down for quite a long time. So now you drop your clothes off at a machine and you type in your phone number, and I'm speaking to nobody at all. And it's 24 hours a day. So it's actually on the outside of the business as well. So I'm not even stepping foot inside the facility. So I can't even complain to a manager if this thing is not accessible. So it's everywhere. Self-service is now permeated our entire lives, from checking in at the doctor's office to using the grocery self-checkout. Oh my gosh, voting, terminals. I mean, really important kind of life stuff that we need. It's not just, you know, we think, oh, McDonald's, ordering a burger. Yeah, maybe we can live without a burger. Visiting your doctor's office, picking up your prescriptions. Those are kind of like fairly important like things we need to do in our lives. So the last kiosk experience that you had, you know, we want you to think, where were you? What were you trying to do? What was the first clue that it would or wouldn't work? If it went right, how did it get it right for you? Or where did it fall apart? And again, that could be anywhere. It could be the complete lack of accessible hardware, or it could be perhaps that, you know, when you had connected your audio and you triggered the screen reader, you might have thought this is great, but then halfway through the transaction or the sequence, there's a timeout, or it suddenly stopped speaking, the screen reader stopped working. So, you know, and were you able to finish the transaction without help? Because the without help piece is really important. And Matt and I speak to lots of businesses where they seem to think that by providing a person, and this could be at the grocery store, one person looking after 8 or 12 self-service checkout lanes, or the doctor's office receptionist who, you know, 80% of the time might be at the front desk, but then 20% of the time she's off having a lunch or, you know, dealing with other customers or patients. So lots of businesses seem to think that by having a person floating around somewhere makes up for the fact that kiosks are not accessible. And we've heard when we've been to the NFB conventions over the years, haven't we, Matt, that that doesn't fly in the real world, because you're often waiting for that person, because the person looking after all those grocery checkouts is dealing with, you know, people buying alcohol or something not scanning correctly. They're not, you know, there straight away. You're often having to wait, and then it becomes embarrassing that you're waiting. So again, it's that the emotional sort of toll that it takes on the person trying to do what is a very simple transaction, or should be. So it's all of those things that we want to hear, isn't it? I mean, the stories we heard at the NFB were crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are the barriers that some people face. If you take a moment and think, okay, what about self-service, and when's the last time that you use self-service? Because if I talk from my own experience, I use self-service on a daily basis. Went to the supermarket yesterday, which is probably the last time where I used self-service because the queue was too long. So I decided I got a few items, I go self-service, but that's not accessible. So that's just not there for, it's not an option for people that are blind, for example. So if you think about the self-service, when have you used it last time? Because it's really everywhere. Everywhere where you go, more and more is expected to be self-service. So yeah, take a moment and think, when's the last time I used self-service? And I think you'll be surprised how many interactions in a day you have where either you voluntarily pick self-service or there's no other way than having to do it yourself, such as paying for a parking ticket, or there's a lot of interactions that people just don't have the option to join. So I think, yeah, take a moment, think of your last kiosk experience and how many times that is in a day. And self-service is just something that's part of everyday life now.
And really, we're thinking of self-service, we're thinking of kiosks, Matt, aren't we, often, because we're in the business, we work for Storm Interface, which has always primarily served that sort of self-service kiosks and checkout market. But there's also vending. And if you open, because when you think self-service, by its very definition, it's doing something yourself, as in no help from a store associate, which could be at an completely unattended self-service or semi-attended. But the unattended self-service, we're talking, soda fountain, they're not very accessible normally at all. Lots of vending machines are completely inaccessible. So if we even expand the footprint slightly bigger than kiosks and self-service checkouts, it's an enormous market sector that's just completely unusable by a large proportion of people. It's madness. Anyway, so
yeah,
sorry.
So I mean, if we look at the journey, because sometimes some parts of the journey are working well, but if we break the journey down into phases, we have, well, finding the kiosk is number one. So once I find the kiosk, then I need to start the audio. When I plug in my headphones, will the audio start? Will there be instructions how I use it or what it is in the first place that this kiosk does? So if we move through the screens, can I do that with the navigation buttons? Can I confidently go back, or can I get easily to the payment screen? Is there going to be enough time for me to consider what's on the screen or listen to the audio feedback, all the way to, well, pay in and then confirming my payment? And on top of that, making sure it's private. So can I make sure it's private when somebody's standing behind me? Is it I'm going through the audio, but somebody else might see it visually, and because I can see it, is that something I can confidently rely on? And that's all part of the journey and the accessible journey. And that is, if one of those breaks, so let's say there's no instructions how to use it, the experience or the solution breaks. Oh, I think I got cut out slightly. If the audio breaks, if there is no audio coming out of the unit, the entire solution breaks. So it's all about the entire journey and how can we make sure that journey works. And if it does fall apart, what stage is that at, and where can we assist the people that put the unit there?
Yeah. And what stood out for me at the NFB, and I was gobsmacked, and that doesn't happen very often, that I'm lost for words. We had more than one person speak to us at the NFB, didn't we, Matt, who said they've actually had to give somebody their debit or credit card or PIN number even at the credit card payment terminal. So they've relied on either a complete stranger or somebody, a staff member, who, and let's face it, anybody could say I'm a member of staff nowadays. You could be wearing a polo shirt and navy trousers and, oh yeah, I work in Walmart, because there's not any actual uniforms. And how do they know? How does this person know who they're giving their information to? I mean, I found that I'd heard about it years ago, but I somehow thought that had all been tied up because PCI has really strict requirements, and then to me it seems to be completely fall apart when it comes to the accessibility piece. So that was a bit of a shocker. But again, this is all the feedback that we want to hear. We heard lots of it at the NFB convention, and we want to keep the conversation going. So this next slide that Luca's just showing, the headline, I think, says it all to me. One story helps, but hundreds make the case.
Absolutely. So as we said earlier, if there is a single individual that reports something to, so let's say you're at a burger place, it doesn't work, you might mention it at the front desk that it doesn't work, and the line of reporting is not the easiest, because they might report it, but the accessibility layer is not something everyone sees. If the kiosk is down because there's no power, anyone that comes into the restaurant will see it's not working. Staff will see it's not working. If the audio is not coming out because I plug in my headphones and it's not working, it's not something everyone can relate to. So we want to make sure that those barriers are easily reported. So there is a clear way to collect all those problems, and then we can, as a united front, say, well, these are the problems that your customers are experiencing. How can we make it better? And that's our goal. We want to make sure they're brought together to do something different, and we can't see the barriers return every time, and we want to change that.
For sure. And like Matt said, it's collecting it all together, because again, I think lots of people might complain to a store manager, and that might be happening all across this country and across Europe. You know, they're complaining at that level. People are complaining, or they're saying, oh, I'm giving up and I'm going elsewhere. But all those collective voices are not, they're small little trickles. We need to kind of create a bit more of a flood of I'm not saying complaints, but a flood, this body of evidence that we talked about earlier on. So the campaign, that share your self-service experience campaign that we're trying to get off the ground, is hopefully going to form that body of evidence. So the screen that Luca's now showing is the share your experience screen. I'll leave you to, it's a URL that you'll have to read out, Matt.
Yeah, so what we've done, we have talked a lot, but in the end, it's about your experience and the barriers that you have or you are facing. So what we've done, we've built a page that's called Share Your Self-Service Experience, and it gives you somewhere to record what happened while the details are still fresh. So you can share your bad experiences, but also your good experiences. We want to know what worked and why it has worked for you. So we'll ask you where the kiosk was, what you were trying to do, whether you found it accessible, if there's something you would improve, what would it be? So the feedback that you as a user think is important for the deployer of the kiosk to know, good or bad, we want to know it so we can then translate it also in technical terms. So we can talk to the deployers and talk about how did you make it work that well for your customers, because we can learn a lot, which we then share within the community. If something hasn't worked for a customer, how can we work together in changing that in the future? So something simple as I was checking in at the hospital and I found the headphone socket, but there was no sound coming out of it. I think that's something that gives us a lot to work with, because then we know, okay, there is a hospital that has obviously worked on accessibility. They are offering an accessible solution because they have an accessible keypad. Do they need more guidance on the software, or is the software layer broken, or is even the hardware broken? It's something that we don't know from the feedback, but we know it doesn't work. So we can dig deeper with the software teams, with the deployer, and also look at our hardware, see where can we improve, what can we do better, and how can we make sure that the self-service accessibility is working next time you visit. So the address at the moment is still slightly longer. I'll read it out. We are working on a shorter URL. So it is content.org/share storm-your-self-service-experience.
We like hyphens at Storm. Clearly.
Yeah.
Storm-interface.
So if your first feedback is going to be, well, this self-service URL is too long, please put it through our form. Now we are doing change. So we are going to make sure that also our URL to report it is going to be as accessible as it can be.
Yeah, and I think we're going to drop it in the chat as well, I think. Yeah, and then obviously all of that feedback, you might be thinking, you know, what's going to happen to all the feedback that's hopefully going to be shared on this portal. So yes, we want to collect the information to understand your experiences and where they're going wrong. But really, you know, whether you choose to be contacted by us then is really down to you. So there's a space on the form where you can sort of indicate whether you'd like to be contacted by us, because the data really, when we're looking at it, will be anonymized. So it will just be looking at, it may be a certain business name that keeps popping up, and it'll be, you know, sort of, we'll be looking at, okay, well, there's 10 users that said the audio wasn't working at this particular location. So, but I say there's our privacy sort of details are at the bottom of the page, I think, as well, how we store and use your data. But really, it's mainly, we would like to follow up if you're agreeable to that, and you can indicate that on the form. But obviously we would never publish anything along with your identities unless you'd given permission to do that first. But really what we want to be looking for is patterns. The problems that you keep reporting are problems. Perhaps we didn't realise that was a problem, and it's something that we can easily fix, or we can work on a fix either via the hardware or the software, or we can work with the organisations. It may be that the accessible kiosk is always the one that's very difficult to find. Well, again, that kiosk placement is something that we can be advising businesses going forwards. So it's all of this information we're hoping will feed into a big database of knowledge that we can then hopefully share with the communities and with the businesses that we work with.
Yeah. And some of those problems that you report will be able to act on ourselves. Some will sit with the software team or the kiosk manufacturers, together with the organizations that are running the machines. But either way, we'll make sure that it gets directed to the people that can drive change, might that be the manufacturer, the software team, or our own product teams. Because we want to make sure that your feedback is converted into change for future accessibility in self-service.
Yeah. And then another question, again, please feel free to either share it in the chat or put it in the form, would be, you know, what would you want to hear? What feedback can we provide you with? So if you've taken the time to fill out the online form, you've perhaps done it more than once for several different businesses that all have inaccessible self-service or kiosk systems, and you've shared information with us, how can we do better at providing you with the feedback? Have we perhaps made some inroads with some of those businesses? So it may be that, you know, eventually we could publish a quarterly newsletter or a yearly recap of what, you know, what changes your feedback has driven in the last 12 months. Or I don't know. This is where I say we really want your help, because we want to reach you where you are. Yes, we're asking you to fill out this form, which you're investing your time in, which we really appreciate. But then by the same token, how can we repay that? You know, we want to let you know where we've made some progress or whatever, and what's changed, and perhaps what businesses, you know, that you previously reported were not accessible that perhaps now are. Because like we said earlier on in this webinar, they've done a really bad job, the businesses that have invested in accessibility, they've done a really bad job of advertising that on the whole. So really, we're asking you to, next time you use a self-service kiosk, tell us what happened. And if it's fresh in your mind, then please do it now.
Yeah, so before we finish, we said we wouldn't talk about products specifically, which is not the aim of this, but I think we should briefly explain where Storm fits into all of this. So we make accessible controls for self-service kiosks like audio nav, nav bar, nav pad, tactile buttons and audio guidance that help blind people, move through on-screen menus to complete transactions independently. So if you have used tactile buttons or have found tactile buttons next to a self-service screen, it's very likely that it's one of our products. Now, our products are only part of the experience. The software still needs to work, controls need to be easy to find, and every step from starting the audio to making a payment need to be accessible. So the experience you share will help us improve our products and give better guidance to the companies that are building solutions for self-service accessibility. So we'll collect that feedback and take that for our own products, but also for companies we work with in self-service accessibility.
So really what we say, please feel free to share this with your communities. Obviously we're working with the chapters of the NFB to try and share the URL at sort of that chapter level, so we can kind of spread the word about getting this feedback, getting this share your self-service experience momentum going. And then obviously then it'll be a case of keeping it going. So we're going to be sharing this all across sort of social. Obviously that'll be, you know, Luca in charge of that. And we're also working with, or we're trying to also increase our outreach to folks in the advocate communities as well, who are actually the boots on the ground, you know, hopefully who are going to help spread the word and get all this feedback in for us. Because I think once we've painted this very amazing picture with all of these stories, it's going to be then even harder for businesses to keep dismissing it. I mean, the legislation's slow in changing. The European Accessibility Act has surprisingly helped kick some butts over this side of the pond, which is good to hear. But again, Storm, we meet with, you know, federal level and state level people who set the rules and regulations. So all of this feedback is really helpful to us when we're meeting with those folks as well, the people who actually set the standards. So yeah, I mean, this is hopefully something that's just going to keep growing. So whatever you can do to help us grow it, like, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, and at the moment we're showing a QR code on the screen to make that URL slightly easier to access. So if you point your phone at the screen, you will be able to get there directly. And the message is quite simple. If you use a self-service kiosk recently, tell us what worked, tell us what failed, and what would have made it accessible. And then we can work in making sure that next time you visit, you are sharing it as a positive experience if it wasn't a good experience. So yeah, share it, use it, or use it, share it, and help us build the evidence to show what good or bad self-service.
Yeah. We want to try and remove the bad and the ugly. We just want good. We don't want the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want to try and just aim for the good.
Yeah. So I'll also read read out the link one more time, which is content.storm-your-self-service-experience. If you would like to get in touch by mail, it is info@storm-interface.com. We're always happy to get any other feedback that you want to share with Storm, good or bad, about our products or your personal experiences.
Definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll open this up. If there's any questions, please, anybody feel free to chime in.
Yes, and any questions that are there afterwards from the recording, feel free to send them to info@storm-interface.com. Yeah. And then we'll answer them by mail. If there are any questions from the chat or in the chat now, then we're also happy to try and answer them.
Yeah, we might have to go off and do some research, but yes, well, does that wrap it up? we might be doing another one of these webinars, especially if we get some momentum going amongst the advocate community for this. Hopefully it would be nice if we could be doing regular updates to share progress. I mean, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? But no, I'd just like to say thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. Oh, I've just noticed Luca's got his hand up. Hey, Luca.
Yes, you can still hear me. I'm not sure if
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share a few, things that I learned during this process, because I've been in touch with a few influencers and people on field that they are using kiosks on a daily basis. And I've noticed that there are a few recurrent topics that they mentioned to me. And I think it was probably, this is the best platform to share them. So the first one is probably the most popular is how do I know if I walk through, a fast food restaurant or any other like coffee shop or even like, the airport, if there is a kiosk that is actually an accessible kiosk? How do I know that? And this is something sometimes that has to, be addressed, I would say, to whoever is the owner of these businesses, because they're not doing like probably the effort to communicate enough that there is an accessible kiosk there and it can be used by people with, for example, visual impairment. And the second one is, should I report to the manager that I'm having, a bad experience? I can't find, a self-service accessible kiosk. Should I report this to the manager? Should I report that maybe your product is installed and it's not working? And in this case, yes, once again, this is like probably something that should be considered as well and put in the, the table and make an effort, a collective effort to make this thing working, from a software point of view, but also from an hardware point of view, and trying to change a bit the mentality of whoever is running a business, and so that nobody's left behind, because this is real experiences from people that I talk to, and I'm just wanted to share this because I think it's important that they have their say in this specific occasion. And the last one is, if I found a kiosk and I'm struggling with it, sometimes I feel vulnerable or dependent from someone if I need to ask for help. So it's once again, one of the major issues for them is like not being able to have, the strength sometimes to show the vulnerability, because it is a vulnerability, being dependent in their position. So I would totally, agree with this. And why should I, put myself in the position of being vulnerable and ask for help? I would like to be completely independent when I'm doing a transaction online, or I'm ordering my food. So just wanted to share these three main topics that emerged from the conversation that I had with people online.
Yeah, and that's kind of, Matt, isn't it? There's definitely a theme here. That's Luca, is kind of what we were hearing at the NFB convention when we were talking to the folks there. And when I mentioned about the credit card payment terminal stories that we were hearing, I mean, talk about vulnerable. I mean, hello. I mean, you may as well just open your wallet and say, take what you want. I mean, that is, to me, exposing people to like crazy situation. But no, I think, I mean, those are all things that we can fix if we have enough evidence. We keep talking about this body of evidence, and we can offer practical. I mean, the marketing piece is. It blows my mind that businesses aren't making more of a deal of the ones that have got accessible kiosks that are easy to find. They've tested them thoroughly. They know they work really good. Why they aren't marketing those? But again, if we can show that they're still losing business because people don't know those kiosks are there. Again, this feedback, hopefully, I mean, that's our hope, isn't it, Matt, that this feedback will provide us with communication channels that we can then, or communication tools and topics that we can then take to the brands who we've worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there were a few questions wrapped up in those.
Yeah.
But I think in the end, it all comes down to sharing the experiences that we've had. We've been with self-service accessibility for quite a while worldwide. We've had good experiences. We've had also challenges initially that we faced, such as how are we finding the kiosk? And I think with the best practices that we kind of developed over all those years, it's something that we are really happy to share with companies and say, okay, this is how one of our customers has solved this with their customers, and that really seems to work. So there's no accessibility is not a fix it today and it's always going to work. It is something that needs to be built, needs to be really incorporated, and is also a learning experience for anyone in accessibility. Will tell you that we learn something every day, and we learn it from the people that work in accessibility, the people that need accessibility, but also the people that have no clue yet about accessibility, because they'll have different challenges that we all want to work together and make sure that accessibility is part of the topic. We can't know it all, but that's what we want to share within the community, to share what has worked, what can you maybe incorporate, what do we know hasn't worked, so you can save yourself as a company also the time to try and think of that as a solution. So yeah, I think it all comes down to sharing knowledge with each other, sharing user feedback with the people that build self-service, and yeah, communicate it all the way from end user to the people that initially design self-service.
Yeah, I think it's I just want to say in closing, the people that we've met over the years of doing the NFB conventions and all of the other accessibility conferences and things that we go to, there's definitely a passion at Storm Interface. I mean, we set out 40 years ago to be a manufacturer of very heavy duty keypads, you know, the keypads that you find on the side of industrial control systems and things. And then 20 years ago, that kind of ended up being, you know, morphing into a range of accessibility devices for self-service. But it's actually within the company, it's actually a subject that we've got quite passionate about because of the people that we've met along the way, all the various advisors that we've met through the RNIB in England, the NFB over here in the States, and I say all those conferences and conventions, and the users of self-service that we've spoken to, and their stories of, I say, those emotional stories that still stick with us today, don't they, Matt? You know, it's so that's the reason we do what we want to do, and we want to do it the best way we can, and we want businesses to embrace it as much as we do. So thank you, thanks very much for all the feedback that we hope will come.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for joining us now or later on. I think it's good that we are working on self-service accessibility, and we are, even though sometimes it might feel like small changes, we are making a big change in the world. And if we speak to end users, we are making big changes, and this will be another addition to a big driver of change for the future.
Yeah, that's our hope. So thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Cheers, folks.
Yes.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.